Hey, what's up guys? It's Pedro here from noobcoder.com and welcome back to part 7 and the final video within my tutorial series, building a type racer clone. And in this tutorial, we're going to wrap it up by working on the scoreboard, the progress bar, and displaying the game code. Alright, so the first thing I want to work on is the progress bar. So let's go ahead and import that. Next, let us add it to our type racer component. So let us put it right underneath the display words and right above the form. So we have our progress bar here. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to pass down players as a prop, player as a prop, and we're also going to pass the number of words. So I just called it words length. And we could get the length by saying words.length. Okay, so this is our progress bar. Now let us save this and let's go ahead and actually create this component. Get rid of that. Now all we need to do is import React, create our component, and we'll just pull out our player, players, and the length. Okay, let's go ahead and export this. Alright, so our progress bar is just mainly to display what percentage the user has typed out. So what we are going to do is we are going to return, and what we're going to return is a div, and we're going to output some JSX. So I'm going to wrap everything within here within a React fragment. And first, we're going to have a title, which is going to be a h5. And we'll give it a class name. And I want this to be text left. And all this is going to do is display the nickname of our user. So I always want our user to be on top of all the progress bars. So we're just going to say player.nickname. Next, let's go ahead and add another div. Let's give it a class name of progress. And we want some space in the Y margin. Next, we're going to give it a prop of key. And we'll just call this player._ID. Next, we'll give another div. And we'll give this a class name of progress bar. Now we're using Bootstrap. Just want to keep you guys reminded. And we're going to give it a row of progress bar. And let me actually... Next, we're going to give it the style. And this is where all the magic is going to occur. We need to give it a width. And we need to give it the percentage that it needs to draw out. Afterwards, all we're going to do is we are going to output the percentage. Okay, so now we have to actually define percentage. We just can't use it like this. So first, we'll just do it up here. We'll say const percentage, and we'll say calculate percentage. And we'll pass in the player and the words length. Okay, now calculate percentage is going to calculate what percent the user has typed out so far. Okay, so let us define this function. We'll do it up here. We'll say const calculate percentage, and we'll get the player and the words length. Now first, we'll say if the player dot current word index does not equal 0, we're going to calculate the percentage completed. So in order to do that, we're going to return, and let us wrap this up, the player.current word index. So this is the amount of words the user has typed out so far. We'll divide that by the word's length. And afterwards, we want to convert this number into a percentage. So what we'll do is we'll times this by 100. Next, we'll wrap this whole thing up. And what we're going to do is we want to round this. So we'll say dot to fixed, and we'll round it 2 places. And we'll add a percentage sign. Okay. So if that is not true, we're just going to return 0. That means that the player hasn't typed out anything yet. Okay. So that's our percentage, which is going to be here. And this should work for our player. But we want to draw out the other players as well. We don't just want our player. So we'll come down here and we'll map over the players array. And we should get a player object. And with that player object, we need to calculate the percentage. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. Just copy that, paste that here. We just need to change player into player object. Let that function do its magic. And then here we need to make a return. So we already outputted our player. So we don't want to output it twice. So for our mapping, we're going to check to see if we should render that player or not. So we'll say if player object dot underscore ID does not equal to player dot underscore ID, that means I want you to render this because this player hasn't been rendered yet. So what we can do is we could actually copy this, paste that right there. And all we need to do is change player to player object. So I'll just copy this and paste that there. Okay, so if the player object does not equal that ID, this player ID, that means we haven't rendered yet, render it out. Otherwise, we already rendered it up top, so we're just going to return null. Okay, so let us actually test this out. So I am going to go ahead and save this. Let us bring in our examples. Come here, let us create this. Boom, it's created. We'll get the game ID. Let us join the game. Okay, so we have our progress bars loaded. You can see that the names are ordered differently. So our player, SDAF is first, and he's always going to be first no matter how many players. And likewise, this dude is always going to be first for his game. So now we could test this out, see if it's working. See we don't get any weird bugs. And we'll say a leader or a man. Let's see if I could type. Or a man. Okay, so that is exactly what we were expecting. Progress bars are working. Both are updating correctly within both browsers. So now let us move on to the next component. So we could go ahead and close that. Come back up here. And let's go ahead and import our scoreboard. Okay. So this is going to display our words per minute of all our players. And let's copy that. Just come down here. We'll paste that there. And the only prop we're going to take in is our players array. All right, let's save this. Open up the Explorer. Let's go ahead and create this component. Get rid of that. And we are just going to import React. Let's go ahead and create our component. And we are just going to pull out from props our players. All right, so now from here, what we need to do is I want to arrange our players in descending order. So the highest words per minute on top, lowest on the bottom. So I'm just going to say const ScoreBoard. It's going to be equal to get ScoreBoard, and we're going to pass in our players. So let's go ahead and create this function. So I just declared it up here. And we're going to take in our players array. Now from here, there's two things I want to do. I only want the player to be on the scoreboard if he's finished typing or the time has run out for the game. So what I'm going to do is filter out the results if that hasn't occurred. So I'm just going to say const ScoreBoard once again. And we're going to go to players, filter, and we should get back a player. And if the player words per minute does not equal to -1, I want that within my scoreboard array. Okay, so remember, if it's -1, that means that this user hasn't finished typing out the sentence yet. Right now, scoreboard is going to have all the players that have finished typing or the time has run out. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to sort our scoreboard in descending order. So we want the highest words per minute on top, the lowest on the bottom. So we're just going to return that array. So we'll say return scoreboard.sort, and we should get two players. So we'll just call this player A, player B. And then we'll say if player A's words per minute is greater than player B's words per minute, what we're going to do is return -1. So this is going to put player A ahead of player B. Otherwise, what we're going to do is check to see if the opposite is true. If player B's words per minute is greater than player A's, then we're going to return 1. And by returning 1, that is going to place player B ahead of player A. And if neither of those cases are true, we are going to return 0, and that just means that they are equal. Okay, so we have our array here. Now what we need to do is if the scoreboard's length is equal to 0, that means no one has finished typing and the game is still going on, so we are not going to render anything. So let's go ahead and return null. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we are going to render this. So we are just going to render out a table. So what I'm going to do, say table, and we're going to give it a class name of stripe. So I want to render a stripe table. And I'm going to give some space on the Y margin. Okay, next, let's give our headers. Let's give us a table row. And we'll say th. We'll give it a scope of column. And the first header we're going to have is just a $. So this is going to be what place the user got in. Let's make 3 copies of that. Next one is going to be the user. And the last one is going to be the actual words per minute. All right, so those are our headings. Next, let's give us a body. And all we need to do is map over the array that we created. So we'll say scoreboard.map, and we should get the player and the index. And just come down here. And we are just going to return a row. Give it a th here of scope, and we're going to set this to row. And this is going to be what place the user ended up in. So since we sorted our scoreboard in descending order, we're just going to output index plus 1. So if this user is first, that means he got first place. So index always starts at 0, so we'll just add a 1 to it. Next, what we're going to do, create a TD here, is we are just going to output the nickname. Let's go ahead and make a copy of that. And the third one is going to be the actual words per minute. So very, very, very simple table. And it's only one way to find out if this is working. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's take a look at our examples. So we have the first one here. Bring in the second one. Creating a game. Let's copy that. And now let's go ahead and start the game. Probably make this a little bit smaller. Okay, so don't believe what your eyes are telling you. All they show is limitation. Okay, so I got first place, 65 words per minute. Second place, he didn't type anything, so he got 0. So our scoreboard is working. Now, let's move on to the final component we're going to create. So let's go ahead and remove this. Come back up here. And let's go ahead and import our last component. It's going to be called DisplayGameCode. And DisplayGameCode obviously is going to display the game code. So it's going to allow our user to be easily able to share his game ID so that other people can join the game. So once we import that, let me go ahead and copy this. Let us put that right here. And the only thing we're going to need as a prop is the game ID. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. Open up the Explorer. Let us go to our components. Let's go ahead and create this. Get rid of that. And within here, we're going to import React. But we are also going to import 2 additional hooks. The first hook is going to be useRef. And the second is going to be useState. Okay, we got that out of the way. Let's go ahead and create our component. And we are going to pull the game ID from props. Okay, let's just export this. Now from here, what I'm going to do is create a state called copy success. So if the user successfully copied the game code, this is what this is going to keep track of. And for now, we'll set the state to false. Next, what we're going to do is let's go ahead and create our ref. So I just called it text input ref. And we're just going to say use ref and pass in null. Okay, next let's work on our JSX. So what we're going to be returning. So first, let's go ahead and create a row. And we're also going to need some space on the Y margin. And let's make sure the text is centered. Next, let's work on our grid. So we'll give this a class name of column small. And let's go ahead and copy this 2 more times. We'll make the middle one 8. And within here, let's go ahead and give us a header. So I just used the H4 and I said, send this code to your friends for them to join. Next, let's create an input group. And we're going to need some space on the bottom margin of 3. All right, finally, we need to have an input field. And this is where we're going to use our ref hook. So let me just come down here and we'll set the ref to our text input ref. Next, let's go ahead and give it a value and we'll set it to our game ID. All right, so why are we doing this so far? So we have a ref, so we have access to this input field. Once we have access to this input field, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up copying the value, which is the game ID, into the clipboard. That way the user could essentially send this code to whoever he wants to send it to. Okay, afterwards, our next prop that we're going to send is our read only. And if you don't specify what you want to set read only to, it defaults to true. So I'm not going to specify anything. And the final prop is we're just going to give it a class name of form control. All right, next, what we're going to do is we're going to create another div. And this is where we're going to put our button. And we're going to give this div a class name of input group append. And let me just go ahead and scroll down here. We'll create the button. And I am going to use an outline button. And let me just get some space on another line. And we're going to have an onClick function. And we'll pass our handle in. So I just called it copy to clipboard. And finally, let us give it a type of button. All right, and the text is just going to be copy game code. Alrighty, so we're almost done here. The last thing I want to display is message to the user that he successfully copied the game code into the clipboard. So first, we're going to use our state that we created. We called it copy success. And if the user successfully copied it, what we're going to do is render out this div. So all I'm going to use is an alert. And we'll make it an alert success. Come down here. We'll give it a prop of role. And we'll set that to an alert. And the message that I want to display is successfully copied game code. All right. Otherwise, all we're going to do is render out nothing. Okay. So we have one thing we need to implement is our copy to clipboard function. So I'm just going to copy this. And let me come up here and let's go ahead and create this. And we should get the event object. Now within here, we need to select our input field. So that's why we attach the ref. In order to do that, we'll just say text input ref dot current, and we're just going to select it. Next, what we want to do is copy the game code. So we're going to go ahead and say document dot execute command of copy. And what this is going to do is copy whatever value is within this input. So first we say text input ref current select. So select this input. Next, I want you to copy, and this is going to copy whatever value we set it to. So we set the value to the game ID, which is what users use to actually join games. And afterwards, once we copy this, all we need to do is set our copy success to true. Okay, so without further to do, let us go ahead and save this. And let's actually take a look at this in action. Okay, not good news, but this is easily solvable. So it says game ID is not defined, and we gotta look within type racer, line 28. So let us go ahead and do that. And it says Game ID is not defined. And that's because this should be ID, not game ID. Okay. So very easy fix. Let us hope that is all that's wrong. So let's save that. And there we go. So I create a game. Let's go ahead and create this. Let's hit submit. And there you go. Here is what we just created. So our game code is being displayed here. I hit copy game. Successfully copied game code. Let us bring in the another browser. So I send this game code to my friend. And there you go. You see it pasted right there perfectly. And he could type whatever he wants to join the game. So if you stuck it out with this tutorial series, I hope you guys learned something, and I hope to see you guys in future tutorials.